with under a quarter of a mile to go. War of Will's in traffic and still well back and still a lot to do for War of Will with a furlong to go. And it's Spinoff who's taking a short lead from a battling By My Standards. Springfield and Country House. It's Spinoff and By My Standards for Gabriel Saez. It's By My Standards and Spinoff. By My Standards at 22-1 to win the Louisiana Derby.
All right, here we go with part number 7 of this. By My Standards, why I don't think he's going to win the Kentucky Derby. And I will say this, By My Standards is the second horse that I actually think does not have a reasonable chance to win the Kentucky Derby. Him and Pluquet Parfait, the ones that I've done already, are the two that I think at this point don't really have a good chance of winning. The other horses, you know, the Maximum Securities, the Roadsters, the Tacitus's, I'm just kind of coming up with stuff that I'm pulling out of the air. You know, I had some people saying that, you know, I was using the fact that Maximum Security is undefeated against him. You know, with some of the horses that have really good chances of winning the Kentucky Derby, it's kind of just like, you know, let's have fun, see how wrong I end up looking at the end. But By My Standards and Pluquet Parfait are horses that I actually really think don't have a chance in the Kentucky Derby. I mean, let's take a look at him for a moment. It took this horse 4 tries to break his maiden, and then he won the Louisiana Derby, a race that has not been a race that has historically produced Kentucky Derby favorites. Not that that has anything to do with him not having a chance in the Derby this year. I really think that looking at prep races and saying, well, a horse hasn't won the Kentucky Derby and the Wood Memorial since 2000, or the Bluegrass and the Kentucky Derby since 1991, even though I did say that, I did say in those videos that I kind of think that that's complete BS and that it doesn't have anything to do with the horse this year. And I think that that's the same thing with the Louisiana Derby. I think that there are reasons that actually have something to do with the horse himself and not history. And it's just that I don't think By My Standards is that good of a horse. The Louisiana Derby was kind of a weak field this year. The favorite War of Will, the stock on War of Will has dropped significantly since the Louisiana Derby. But they talked about this on NBC, that they used that race as kind of a way to teach War of Will. I don't necessarily like to use the word teach in this circumstance, but they wanted to see how War of Will would respond the first time he got dirt in his face, which grass horses, the first time they run on dirt, tend to not respond well when they run and get dirt in their face. So they wanted to see how he would handle that, and they also didn't want the first time for him getting dirt in his face to possibly be the Kentucky Derby. The one thing I won't knock the Louisiana Derby for this year is it has gotten 4 horses from the Louisiana Derby have since gone on to qualify for the Kentucky Derby field. You had Country House and War of Will. War of Will was already in. Country House got in last week. And then you had Spinoff and By My Standards, though second place and winner respectively. So that is one positive for the Louisiana Derby. But the final time of the race wasn't really impressive. There was nothing really super impressive about it, besides the price that ended up being on the board for By My Standards. So really, it's just By My Standards he's a long shot for a reason. And I'm not saying a long shot can't have a good race. That clearly happened there. Long shot runs a very good race. Or I don't want to call it a very good race, but a long shot, By My Standards, can run a couple of good races. But I just don't think 20 horses in the Kentucky Derby, there's going to be definitely a lot of traffic. And there was a lot of traffic in the Louisiana Derby. There's going to be more traffic in the Kentucky Derby. And not a fan of By My Standards. I would not be upset to be wrong, though. I do think that Gabriel Saez, for all the stuff that he's gone through in his career, it would be great for him to win the Derby. Just touching back on the time of the Louisiana Derby, it was faster than the other prep races this year, or at least a couple of the other prep races this year. I will give it credit for that. But ultimately, I mean, By My Standards, like I said, was a long shot for a reason, and I think coming to the Kentucky Derby, he's going to be probably in the 30, 40 to 1 range. And there's just better horses than him. So that's really it. Thank you for watching this episode. If you want to get more from Racing Rundown, you can subscribe to the podcast on any podcast site, wherever podcasts are found. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter, on Instagram at Racing Rundown Podcast, and on Twitter at Rundown Racing. You can expect coming up next Game Winner, and also I will finish finally, I've been saying that I'm going to do this for a long time, and I'm finally having an opportunity to. A Case for Racing Immortality series will finally be concluded with the 3 trainers that are up for consideration: Mark Casse, Christophe Clement, and the late David Whiteley, all in one video. I will have that for you sometime before Monday.